Alright, this is the first of our video tutorial series that we're going to be doing for our AutoCAD 2007 tutorial. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of is the tutorial that's sitting in front of you that I'm actually going to be looking through is for an older version of AutoCAD. So not everything here that it says you how to do is going to be exactly the same way. I'm sorry about that, but you know, that's the way life is. You're going to have to work with the tools you got. One of the things that's very important in this class that I want you to understand is that you can accomplish what you want if you struggle. Don't just give up and expect the teacher to show you how to do it. You know, I always say that there's three ways of figuring out anything in a computer. You can use the point, click, and cuss method, which is like you just go into the buttons and find out what things do. You know, which is always a good idea, and that's probably the best way of learning. There's the, you know, look really pathetic and have the person next to you show you how to do it model, which does work, okay, and that's always helpful. It's a quick way to learn something if someone happens to be around who can help you. And then there's the final method, which is what I call the, you know, the when all else fails and you have no other choice and you're forced into it, you know, read the directions. All right. Now, I also include, you might be able to find the directions on YouTube, or you might be able to find the directions online somewhere on a help menu. Part of this course is you're going to learn how to find help, all right, without asking the teacher all the time. All right, so when we begin a new drawing, one of the things it says, and this is on page 75, it actually shows you what a little rough sketch should look like. You will be doing rough sketches like that later on in the term, all right? But what we're going to be doing here now is we're going to be creating a new drawing. All right, so let's go to File, New, and one of the things is, yes, there is a quick setup menu that pops up automatically in the old version. For some reason, they decided they didn't think that was a good idea. But what you notice, you see how it says AutoCAD Lite DWT? That extension stands for Drawing Template. So we're just going to say Open, and it pops up. All right, and we don't get that little dialog box that's shown on page 75. All right, so what do we have to do? Well, the first thing we have to do is set the unit type. And I found this by looking, all right, which is what I'm going to ask you guys to do. And what you find is you scroll across, you find, under Format, there's something called Units. When I click on that, something pops up that looks an awful lot like that quick drawing setup, all right, and you're going to set it in decimal, precision of 00, okay, and you've got all these other things. Now, unfortunately, in the quick drawing setup, it sets up your the scale of the drawing. That doesn't happen here, so we're going to have to do that separately. I'm going to say, okay. I'm going to go back to Format, and what do you know? The drawing limits are also there. Okay, so that's what you're going to find under page, that kind of explains it under page 77. But if you go to Drawing Limits, okay, and you just said OK, it says, okay, where do you want this? And if you notice when you scroll around, it's going to give a whole bunch of numbers. It tells you where you are on your drawing. But if you look down here at this toolbar, you notice that there's a default here. This is, do you want the lower left-hand corner to be 00? And the answer is yes, so you just hit Enter. Then it says, where do you want the other drawing to be? And you notice that as I'm dragging around, you may notice, you might not be able to see this, it's telling you where you are on the drawing. This is like 19 by 22. If I were to click here, I'd have a drawing 19 by 22. However, once again, the default is 12 inches by 9 inches, which is what we want. So I'm just going to click down here and hit Enter. And now I set up my drawing. All right? So we've got our limits. Now, if you take a look at this bottom draw here, you're going to notice that there are a couple of things. One is this little button that says Grid. And this was driving me crazy. You notice how you get a little tiny grid here in the corner? The reason is if you go like right here, if you notice when I'm moving my cursor around, right here is 12 by 9 inches. Okay? You can actually see the numbers right next to the word snap. The numbers of where you are on the grid show up. Okay? That's the entire drawing. So in order to get that to fill the screen, I'm going to go to View, Zoom, Window. Oops. View, Zoom, Window. Oh, that didn't work. That's interesting. I don't know why that did that. View, Zoom. Extents, maybe? Okay, guys, that's a perfect example of what I mean. I actually forgot what I was doing there for a minute. In order to get the grid to fill the screen, you go to View, Zoom, All, and it goes to the entire screen. All right, so that's one thing. Now, you notice Watch what happens when I move my cursor around. You notice how neatly the cursor moves around? Well, you can also play around with the snap mode here. Okay, I just clicked on activated snap mode. Now watch. Watch how my cursor is moving. It's jumping from one button to the next. That's kind of annoying, but what it does for you is it allows you to get the information you need. It allows you to draw a line perfectly straight and a certain number of units apart, which is a very, very helpful thing. All right? So you can actually, and then when I hit enter, I freeze it. Okay? Now, the other thing I can also do, you notice how I have the snap? I can actually right-click on the snap, go to settings, and I'm going to say, you know, I want the snap X and Y spacing to be 0.25. 0.25. So it's a little bit smaller, so it's like 0.25 of an inch or whatever. You notice that it's now snapping in between the points of the grid. I don't know if you can actually see that. I could also, if I wanted to, click on the grid, right-click, settings, and I can make the grid 0.25 as well. Now watch what happens. And it gets a much smaller grid and a much more precise grid. All right, that's a very useful tool that you might want to use when you're trying to set up your drawing. All right, right now I think you want to keep that at the defaults. Okay, if you want to take a look at it and go back, but that's how you set the units up. Okay, so you notice that the next page, on page 79, it talks about exactly what we were just discussing, where you can set the snap independent from the grid. All right, so that's what we're doing. I don't think you need to worry about the ortho part. The next part we're going to talk about is loading line types.